Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the 2019-2020 Steer Profitability Competition informational webinar. I'm Rachel Endecott. I'm a director here at the American Simmental Association, and part of my job is to help coordinate especially the educational portion of the SPC contest. So hopefully you're able to see the screen, and you should have a title slide. And if you have any questions as we go along, if you look at the chat button and you expand that and you type your message there, I'll be sure to try and keep a good eye on that and get caught up with you when you have questions. This webinar will be recorded for those who weren't able to join us. All right, so just as kind of an overview, the mission of the Steer Profitability Competition is to provide junior members some meaningful exposure to cattle feeding. And so we're wanting to have both of the opportunities and the exciting and fun things that go along with cattle feeding, as well as some real world experience with the challenges that also may come along with it. So we want to have a real world system where our participants can measure and compare the profitability of their animal or animals. And hopefully through our webinar systems, we'll be able to introduce you as a participant to a pretty unique network of individuals and experiences from around the beef cattle industry. And again, we're trying to build leaders here, and so we want to prepare our participants to have a powerful voice as you transition into adult participation within the beef industry. So we're going to be pretty large scale overview this evening. So for those of you who are maybe less familiar with the project, all of the steers are fed at the University of Missouri in a GrowSafe feed intake system throughout the project. And so GrowSafe is a way that we can measure individual gain and intake on all steers, and they will be measured from start to finish in the project. And so the way this works is the GrowSafe works on each bunk has an EID reader and a scale underneath the bunk. And so each calf will receive an EID tag. And so when they put that EID or RFID tag, their head through the bunk into the bunk, it measures that that calf is eating and then is taking weights every second, if not multiple times a second, to find out what that intake is. We'll have a monthly newsletter that will go out usually the week before the monthly webinar is scheduled. And our purpose here is to have education, information, and announcements. We're gonna, and we did this for the first time last year. I think it worked really well from a newsletter perspective, is we had each participant send in a little bit of a bio about and a picture about themselves. And so we were able to have kind of a way to meet your fellow participants through the newsletter in a couple of issues, and we'll probably do that again this year. So like I said, we also have monthly webinars, and so we're trying to kind of time those by what the cattle are doing in the feedlot based on kind of where they are in their process of growing up and being ready for harvest. We give updates on cattle performance and how things are going at Mizzou, and any other kinds of reminders. And so part of the leadership and learning process is that we have a feedback assignment due after each webinar, and we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go. Something that's new this year, this will be different than past years, is we're going to bill just once at the end of the project. Payment will still happen through the ASA herd book system as it has in the past, but instead of having a monthly feed bill, feed and health bill to pay, we'll have that at the end of the project. And then this is a true ranch to rail experience, and so steers will be marketed, and you as a participant will be paid on carcass grade and yield of that steer or steers. So back by popular demand from last year was the first year we tried our different feedback formats each month, is we'll have short essay questions with prompts or maybe a half-page summary. maybe an infographic or social media post creation, or maybe a short online quiz tailored to the participant age. I'm still working on the online quizzes. We didn't quite get to those last year, but what I think received a lot of positive feedback on was in some of the later webinars that we did last year, we decided that you would get a choice. So you could write me some quiz questions or make an infographic or write a summary, and I think that that really appealed to a broad range of experiences and ideas. So we're excited to have that as part of our opportunities again this year. So new this year, like I mentioned before, is that participants are now going to be billed once at the end of the feeding period, and you'll have one total bill instead of monthly bills throughout. We're still kind of working out details. I think you probably will still receive some sort of monthly report in regard to feed intake and health, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear and see how that goes. So just as a reminder, the participant, if you're a junior and you would like to put some steer or steers in, you have to hold an active AJSA membership, and you agree to all deadlines and cattle requirements. You'll enter your animals by Friday of this week, October 11th, 2019, at the end of the day. You'll maintain ownership but forfeit possession of the cattle at delivery. A reminder that SPC is a terminal contest, and the steers are harvested at the discretion of the feed yard. We have a really awesome crew at the University of Missouri who does a wonderful job of feeding cattle for us, and they have been great to us in making sure the cattle get marketed effectively. And then, of course, we'd like the participant to participate in our mandatory monthly webinars and return those feedback assignments. And like we mentioned before, steers are marketed on grade and yield basis, and the participant is paid accordingly. All right, so what about steers? What do we need to know about them to get them entered? So the online entry form that you can find on the AJSA webpage, juniorsimmental.org, and click on SPC. That form is built to, you can enter up to 3 steers per form. So if you're going to enter a pen of 3, go ahead and put those 3 that you want in the pen to get as the pen on the same form. Then if you decide to enter an additional individual steer, for example, then you'd fill out a second online form. We don't take any heifers. As you after we get entered and we're rolling, you'll be billed a $50 per head entry fee. The steers have to be entered in the ASA database. They do not have to be registered. They just need to have an on-file number. And at least one parent animal has to be registered in the ASA database. And they don't have to be registered. Simmental will take all breeds. If it's a foundation registration from another breed, that is acceptable. So this is a spring calf system where we are looking for calves that are born between the 15th of January and the 15th of April of this year, weaned here in this August 15 to October 15 time period of the fall. Steers have to be cut prior to weaning. Ideally, we'd like them to be in the 500 to 750 pound range at delivery. This is within reason, of course. We've had a little fluctuation around here, and for the most part, that's just fine. No horns will be accepted. Steers have to be polled, and if they're not, they must be dehorned. And like we said, any breed compositions are welcome as long as the above requirements are met. If the steers are also eligible, if they are at least half Simmental, to receive points in the overall contest that go toward the overall contest at the AJSA National Classic each year as well. We'll cover a little bit more about that here near the end. So ideally, we want you to work closely with your local veterinarian for an effective vaccination protocol prior to delivery. Don't forget that health papers are probably going to be required for interstate shipment. So if you don't live in Missouri, and even if you do, go ahead and make sure that you check with your local veterinarian about any sort of paperwork that you might need for health. Again, We don't want to bring sickness into the University of Missouri feed yards. We'd like healthy calves only. And an ASA screener, which is usually Mr. Chip Kemp, has the right to reject unhealthy or unfit animals. Whether or not and how often or how many times a steer is implanted at the feed yard is solely a feed yard decision. And so that management will be in their hands once they arrive at the feedlot. And then all steers will receive booster vaccinations upon feed yard entry. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about what those are, and what those will be, and the diseases that we're trying to prevent when we get started here, probably in November. So delivery arrangements, once we complete our final deadline here in October, ASA, that's us, will coordinate a collection route. And so we do our dead level best to keep the maximum distance for participants to less than 250 miles. All of y'all as families have been so wonderful to us in the past and really helped make this really work. And certainly want to acknowledge Chip for all of his hard work each year, trying to coordinate from steers from all over the place, from last year from Colorado to Virginia and Minnesota to Texas. But the participant is responsible for delivery to that regional collection point that we establish. And since we're kind of shifting a touch later this year, our delivery dates will probably be in mid-November. So stay tuned for details. Certainly if you've signed up for the project and everything's a go, then we'll be in touch, usually via email. So make sure that your email address is correct when you enter, and make sure that you check it. So like I mentioned, all feed yard decisions are at the discretion of the University of Missouri feed yard management team. And I assure you, the cattle will be in really good hands there. Tentatively, we tend to harvest at Cargill Meat Solutions in Schuyler, Nebraska. And again, the harvest date is also at the discretion of the feed yard, approximately April, May in 2020. In years past, we've generally had 2 kill dates. Cattle that finished faster last year were the end of April. We had hoped to have the end of May. The second group went right after the 1st of June. And so some of it depends on when the plant can get us in and how the cattle are growing. So there is a financial responsibility that goes along with this contest. And so certainly if you're not an AJSA member, or even if you are, making sure that you're active and current and continue to pay your dues is important. If you have parent animals that we need to register as foundation animals or the like, then those registration costs are also applicable. The entry fee of $50 per steer that we talked about earlier. The delivery of animals to that regional collection point that we'll be telling you about, and then that final feed and health bill. So again, in the past we had bills each month that needed to be paid. We're going to have one big bill at the end so that you'll kind of know what your check's going to be and you'll know that bill. And don't forget that these are animals and this is real life, and sometimes pre-harvest death or injury could occur. Certainly if we have an issue like that, we'll do our very best to make sure that there's some salvage value to that animal if for some reason we have to harvest them ahead of time. If they get badly injured before they're really finished, we'll do our very best to make sure that we take care of that issue. Well, so how do you win? How do we determine this steer profitability? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to apply an initial value to each steer based on what they weighed when they were processed initially at the University of Missouri. And then we're going to go look at USDA Ag Marketing Service report data. And so we're going to look at what the average steers in those price ranges, or weight ranges, excuse me, were bringing that week. And so we'll take the price per pound that the steers were bringing times the weight, and that will be basically an initial cost. Okay, and so we're thinking of that as an opportunity cost. You decided to retain ownership and put the steer in the SPC contest. you could have sold the steer for this many dollars had you decided to take that opportunity. Then we'll keep track of your costs that get accrued from delivery through harvest. And so again, you're going to have a feed bill. You're going to have some bills for things like maintenance and bedding. So when they rebed the pens, you'll get billed for that. Again, these are all going to be totaled at the end. Then you'll also have, if you have any vaccinations, any implants, any boosters, or any antibiotics if animals get sick, you'll get billed for those as well. And then you'll also get billed yardage. And so yardage is just a flat fee that feed yards charge to help them cover costs like wear and tear of the animals being in the pens and those kinds of things. So, and we'll talk about those costs in more detail throughout the year. So we have our initial cost, our opportunity cost of we didn't sell the steer, we retained ownership. This is how much he was worth. Then we're going to add the costs that we accrued during the year with feed and the like. And then the final value, the money you get back, or what the steer is worth at the end, is going to be based on the total carcass price. So based on base price plus any sort of premiums and discounts that you might get for quality and yield grade will be factored in. And then what we've been doing since we have had multiple kill dates is we go ahead and take the carcass base price, premiums, and discounts, and we average those over that time period, the SPC harvest period, for purposes of the competition, so that that in the contest, the animals are treated the same. SPC profitability then is going to be the final value, the carcass value minus the costs. And so the one who has the most steer with the most money left over is going to be the winner. And so you might be wondering, okay, I'm going to give this steer, what am I going to get back? In general, what we do is we give you back only your steer SPC tag number. Other participants won't be able to identify calves by tag number. So there won't be a list of this is Jim's steer and everybody knows it's Jim's steer. Only Jim will know what Jim's tag numbers are. You'll get that monthly webinar where we're going to learn about a variety of different topics over the year. You'll get the newsletter with news and information. And then you'll get to know your final feed yard and carcass performance. The final results aren't distributed until all the steers are harvested, but you'll know up to your costs as well. And so results and awards will be given out at the 2020 National Classic Awards Banquet in Grand Island, Nebraska. That's in July, early July this year. And so the way the awards are handed out is depending on how many steers are entered in the contest, if they have to meet a certain threshold compared to the number of purebred or the largest heifer class in the National Classic. We give awards for the top 10 if they're below that threshold, or the top 20 if they meet or exceed that threshold. And then we also give awards for the top 5 pens of 3 as well. And then the top feedback assignment participant throughout the year also receives prizes, and we do that by age category. So one monthly feedback winner, overall winner per age category. We use the AJSA age categories, junior, intermediate, and senior. We'll talk more about what those are as we go along as well. So just a few things. Some of these screenshots are probably not as updated as the web page looks now, but I promise you that the general function will be the same. So if you're not an AJSA member yet and you would like to be in the contest, this is a good first step. You can go to the AJSA webpage at juniorsimmental.org, click on About AJSA, and join the AJSA. If your steer needs to go on file, and he isn't yet, remember doesn't have to be registered, has to have an on-file number, although the parent animal must be registered. And if it's another breed, will Foundation register the parent? Not a problem. We can make this happen. So if, the way we put steers on file, if you go to herdbook.org and follow the steps listed in the Profit Through Data blog, and I'll show you some screenshots and some steps here in a minute. So once you have your AJSA membership, you'll receive your member number and then a password. And so you'll be able to log in on www.herdbook.org and complete these other steps. So if you go to herdbook.org, you'll see the Profit Through Data blog. Actually, it's the only option now that you have up at the front top, and so you'll have this black animal here kind of centered in the page. Click on that, and then you'll have this set of blog posts will come up, and then if you can see in the lower right hand corner here, you'll have a how to put an animal on file, and so there's step-by-step instructions to get that accomplished as well. As you can see, if you have questions about registering a Foundation animal, we have that information here as well. If you haven't entered steers yet and you're interested, you can go to the Junior Simmental page again, click on SPC, and then you'll have this blue and green set of a table here with different boxes. And so register here, that link will allow you to enter steers in the Google form that we talked about earlier that has a maximum of 3 animals per form. All right, so now you're entered. So you might be wondering, what are the next steps? Well, I'd encourage you to visit with your local veterinarian and make sure you get your health papers arranged for transport. You're going to receive an email from ASA regarding regional pickup locations if we get to that point. So don't forget to check your email. Once you know what that's going to look like, you're responsible again for transporting the steer to the pickup location on the correct day and time. If you miss the truck, then you're going to be responsible for getting your steers to Columbia yourself. And then lastly, we ask that you attend those monthly meetings and complete your feedback assignments. The webinars, again, are the first Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. Mountain. And the recordings and all of the webinars are recorded. We understand that a lot of y'all are going to be busy young people and you're going to have a lot of other things going. And we understand that maybe 6 o'clock Mountain on the first Tuesday is not going to work for everybody. And so if you can't attend a webinar live, don't worry, you have that recording posted the next day. You'll be able to go jump in there. During the webinar, there will be an announcement of what the feedback assignment is. And it's due the following Tuesday by 6 p.m. Mountain. And you're going to, in general, email those to the spc@simgene.com email address. We'll have that contact information here near the end. So, as promised, here's the main number for American Simmental Association here, 406-587-4531. Go ahead and give us a call, ask for Rachel if you've got questions, be happy to chat with you about it. We're also really responsive on the SPC email, and we'll be checking it even more frequently as we get started here this year. And so again, that's spc@simgene.com with 2 M's. And so, like I said, you have the opportunity here. If you've got any questions, if you want to enter those into the chat, please feel free to do so. I'd be happy to answer those as best I can. And you can also check with us later if you have any other questions. So with that, we'll just kind of wait here a couple minutes just in case somebody has a burning question that they're typing furiously. And then we'll call it a webinar, and we'll be done with this first one. So again, if you're watching live, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're watching the recorded version, again, we sure appreciate it. So thanks everyone, and have a wonderful evening.